Most of the Filipinos won't bother, search, nor ask if how the Philippines met independence. Some won't even mind how their ancestors lived back then. Will history be a past without living memories? Or will us Filipinos ignore what was in the past because we're busy struggling with our own lives today? Have we not asked ourselves if the Philippine Society of 19th century similar today? But what was then the lives of our ancestors of 19th century? Before the coming of Spanish colonialists, the people of the Philippine archipelago had already attained a semi-communal and semi-slave social system in many parts, and also a feudal system in certain parts, especially in Mindanao and Sulu, where such a feudal faith as Islam had already taken roots. Because of the absence of political unity involving all or the majority of the people of the archipelago, the Spanish conquistadors were allowed to impose their will on the people of the Philippines, step by step, even with a few hundreds of colonial troops at the start. The kind of society that developed in more than 3 centuries of Spanish rule was colonial and feudal. It was a society basically ruled by the landlord class, which included the Spanish colonial officials, the Catholic religious orders, and the local public chiefs. The masses of the people were kept to the status of serfs, and even the freemen became dispossessed. Throughout the Spanish colonial reign, revolts broke out sporadically all over the archipelago against tribute, corvée labor, commercial monopolies, excessive land grabbing, imposition of the Catholic faith, arbitrary rules, and other cruel practices of the colonial rulers, both lay and clerical. The Philippine Revolution of 1896 saw the intensification and ripening of the colonial and feudal system of exploitation. Under the strain of increasing exploitation, the national and democratic aspirations of the broad masses of the people rose. As oppression was stepped up, the spirit of resistance among the ruled, especially the peasants' masses, became heightened until the Philippine Revolution of 1896 broke out. The intensification of feudal exploitation included the adoption of the hated hacienda system, the rampant seizure of cultivated lands, the arbitrary raising of land rent by both landlords and bureaucrats. In the second half of the 19th century, the entry of native students into the Royal and Pontifical University of Santo Tomas and other colonial clerical colleges became conspicuously large. Though these natives could afford college education, they were still the object of racial discrimination by their Spanish classmates and friar mentors. Even among the Spaniards, there was a foolish distinction between the Philippine-born Spaniards and the Spanish-born Spaniards, with the former being derisively called Filipinos by the latter. As more and more Indios joined the ranks of the educated or the ilustrados, there came a point when the colonial authorities were alarmed, and they entertained fears that they would be taken to task on the basis of the colonial laws whose idealist rhetoric they did not all practice.